If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it, just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago. Makes no sense.
The border between the US and Canada is the longest between two countries in the whole world. It's 8,000.
Mark Carney is heading back to the White House next week to meet Donald Trump as challenges with the U.S. president remain as volatile as ever. The Canada-U.S. trade and security relationship tops the agenda as Trump's tariffs continue to weigh.
Speaking about this agreement with Pfizer, Trump was speaking in Virginia to military officials. What was happening on that front? And we know that he raised the issue once again of Canada being a
51st state proposal and Canada's diplomatic response. Donald Trump has once again returned to his favorite topic about Canada joining the United States as the 51st state. During a speech to military officials at Marine Corps Base Quantico, he proposed that Canada become part of the American Golden Dome missile defense system in exchange for joining the U.S. The Missile Defense Proposal. According to Trump, Canadian representatives allegedly approached him requesting inclusion in the missile defense system. His response was quite straightforward. Why pay for protection when you could simply join the country and get it for free? The cost of such a system, according to Trump's various estimates, ranges from $61 to $71 billion.
However, the president himself admitted he wasn't sure about the effectiveness of his proposal. This statement came just days after U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, declared that talks about the 51st state were in the past and no longer a priority for the administration.
Prime Minister Carney's response. Mark Carney, Canada's new Prime Minister, demonstrates a completely different approach to international relations. During a personal meeting with Trump in May, Carney used a real estate metaphor understandable to the former developer. Some places simply aren't for sale. When Trump responded with, "Never say never," Carney repeated the word never 5 times in a row, clearly establishing his position. Most recently, Carney confirmed he spoke with the American president in New York. This meeting occurred around the same time Washington imposed new duties on pharmaceutical goods. Carney emphasized that Canada continues cooperation with the U.S. on strategic issues, but negotiations are conducted based on mutual respect for sovereignty. New trade restrictions. The Trump administration announced a series of new duties, including 100% taxes on imports of pharmaceutical products and film productions made outside the U.S. Additional charges were also introduced on kitchenware, bathroom goods, furniture, and heavy trucks. These measures were intended to pressure the Canadian economy. However, the result turned out to be opposite to expectations. According to recent polls, 56% of Canadians have actively purchased domestically produced goods over the past 2 weeks, specifically to support the national economy. Nearly 60% consciously avoid American products. Instead of putting Canada in a difficult position, the trade restrictions united Canadians around the idea of economic independence. Foreign Minister Anita Anand presented a strategy based on 3 pillars: defense and security, economic resilience, and core values. The Canadian government is actively working on diversifying trade partners. Carney met with the Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom, Iceland, Spain, and Australia. New trade agreements have been signed with Indonesia and Mexico. Although currently 75 to 80% of Canadian exports still go to the U.S., the government is working on gradually changing this balance. Carney himself noted that changing the structure of trade relations doesn't happen overnight. Canada remains the only G7 country with such extensive free trade agreements with European partners. Canada is developing security partnerships, including cooperation with Australia on Arctic defense systems. This is particularly important in the context of changing geopolitical situations and the growing importance of the Arctic region. The government demonstrated readiness to support key economic sectors. The federal government provided a $400 million aid loan to Algoma Steel, affected by new duties. The Ontario government added another $100 million for the Sault Ste. Marie facility. Employment Minister Patty Hajdu explained that this support concerns Canada's sovereignty itself. Without a thriving national steel industry, the country cannot meet its own needs and achieve the goal of creating the strongest economy in the G7. Carney's electoral victory was largely built on his promise to firmly defend Canada's interests. His campaign slogan, "Elbows Up," a hockey term denoting defensive play, accurately reflected voters' sentiments. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre criticizes the Prime Minister's international trips, calling them liberal showbiz. He argues the government should focus on domestic issues, rising cost of living, public safety, and employment. However, Carney's supporters note that strengthening international relations is critically important precisely during a period when trade relations with the main partner are under pressure. Economic consequences. The Parliamentary Budget Officer, appointed under Carney, characterized current spending and deficits as very troubling, staggering, shocking. The November budget is expected to show a substantial deficit, partly due to the need to support industries affected by trade restrictions. Military response. During Trump's speech at Quantico, the military audience met his proposals with stone silence. This sharply contrasted with the usual reaction at his political rallies. The nonpartisan tradition of the armed forces meant that generals refrained from any visible reactions to the commander-in-chief's political statements. International dimension. The Canadian government made clear that the previous relationship model, based on steadily growing integration with the U.S., is becoming a thing of the past. Carney emphasized that Canada's owners are the Canadian people, and they clearly expressed their position during the election campaign. The foreign minister spoke at the UN, presenting Canada's new approach to international relations. The country seeks to maintain friendly relations with the U.S. while diversifying its economic and political ties. Practical steps forward. Carney's representative responds to new statements with restraint, referring to numerous comments we have made in the past regarding similar remarks. This approach demonstrates that the Canadian government does not intend to engage in public disputes, preferring a consistent and principled position. Canada continues working to strengthen its positions on the international stage, developing partnerships based on mutual respect and common interests. This is a long-term strategy aimed at ensuring economic security and political independence in a changing world. Building new partnerships. The government is actively engaging with allies across multiple continents. Recent diplomatic efforts have focused on strengthening ties with European nations, Asian markets, and Pacific partners. This multipolar approach reduces vulnerability to pressure from any single trading partner. Canadian officials emphasize that these partnerships aren't about replacing one dependence with another, but rather about creating a more balanced and resilient economic framework. The goal is to ensure Canadian businesses and workers have diverse opportunities for growth and prosperity. Maintaining stability. Throughout these challenging times, the Canadian government has maintained its commitment to supporting affected sectors. Beyond steel, various industries receiving assistance include automotive manufacturing, agriculture, and technology sectors. These targeted interventions aim to preserve jobs and maintain economic stability during the transition period. Long-term vision. Carney's administration has articulated a clear vision for Canada's future. A nation that trades freely with all willing partners while maintaining its independence and values. This includes investments in domestic manufacturing capacity, infrastructure development, and innovation.